floor is mine. Yes.
Sorry about that. I think.
Hi everyone. My name is Ada. I'm a software developer at Fish. Today I'll be talking about understanding CSS Flexbox. Before I go on, I know we might at one point in time write something on CSS that demand us to use some of these Flexbox properties. So it's not like it's new to us. What I'm just doing here today just to stress some point or introduce you guys to some of the properties you might not have come across. So yes, I will just go on. Here are a list of the things I will be discussing on today. What is a Flexbox module, a Flex container, definition, and also its properties, and Flex item definition as well, and also its properties. Yes, so what is CSS Flexbox module? So what this does or came at providing is just like a way of creating a dynamic layout and a good alignment, and also for an item within a container to be distributed evenly without you using things like a float or positioning. So these three main things here are the three things that a Flexbox aim to achieve: a nice layout, like a good alignment, and also like a distributed space between these items that are within a container. So as we go on, I will explain what these two things means, like items and also a container. And also, a Flexbox module, once you apply like a display flex properties to an element, it allows you to have like a ton of properties to use on that element. Say for example, like you have a div that has like a nested element, and you apply like a display flex properties, like a display flex. So the element, I mean the parent element there, you will have like an access to a lot of Flexbox properties. So there was one time then that I was trying to apply things like a flex direction to an element. Like it didn't work. Why? Because I didn't apply this property there. So if you didn't apply like a display flex property, you trying to use some of these Flexbox property, it will not work. So that's the main idea about this. So yeah. So why should we use like a Flexbox? Why why should we use this Flexbox property? One, it is widely supported by a web browser. So of course, all web browser it is supported, and also it can be simple to get started with. You can easily start using it if you know it actually, and it's simple to actually know. So it's very simple to get started with. Also, you can easily center like an element vertically or horizontally. Yes, so it makes it very easy to center an element in your web page, either vertically or horizontally. Then you can easily manipulate some elements effortlessly as well. If you want to make your web page to be responsive or fit in on a mobile view, you can make use of this Flexbox properties. Your stuff will be aligned very well. So yeah, and also it simplifies complexity. Yes, so at times you might want to make use of a media query to make your work to fit in like on mobile view. With this Flexbox, it can make it easier to be able to position your stuff very well on a mobile view rather than using queries and positioning and float and doing an alignment here and there. So with CSS Flexbox, you can easily achieve that. So yes, so I want to explain what a flex container is with a flex item. So this diagram kind of had explained what I want to say, but I will still try to portray more on that as well. So you have an element, like a div element, and this div element has like some nested element too. Like let me show you this page. So yeah, so and this is a typical example of what I just said there. So this is a div element, and these are the nested children. So in this case, this is like the flex container, while this is the flex items that you have there, and also if you apply like a display flex to this guy, this parent guy, it will is so it can easily manipulate its items that are within the parent element. Say you want to do like a justify content center. So if you apply a display flex here, you can easily manipulate the children, the first level children that are within this guy. So why I said the first level is that if you apply a display flex here, it won't have effects on these ones that are nested within this div, because a display flex property, like it only affects the first level, yes, immediate children. So it won't affect these ones that are also nested within the children of that parent guy, the parent element. So yeah, in this case now, this one like it becomes like a flex container of the children of this place of element that that it wraps that is wrapped within it actually. Yeah. So I will still go back here. So when you set like a different element with a display flex property, they become the flex container. Exactly. So that's what I just said. Then the nested children becomes the flex item. So it just parents and children actually. Then okay, back here. So before I start showing you these properties and how they works, I would like to style. I would like to style this element. This first one here. Those of us that let me use my mouse. I would like to style this one. So if I style it using this is just normal CSS. We style the container to have a padding with a background color with an height of 200 a pixel. Then the items itself have a width with a color, then a line center, line height, background color, margin, and padding as well. So once you do this, you will have a result that looks like this. So this is what we are going to be working with to show you how this properties actually works. And one thing I want us to also note that this Flexbox, some of the properties are for the Flex container, while some are for the Flex elements. So we are going to look at these two cases, the styles that are meant for the parent elements, which is the Flex container, and the one that are meant for the Flex item as well. So having said that, so usage. So before you can start using a flex bus property, like I said before, a flex bus is a module, not just a single property, meaning that you have a whole lot of properties that are within this module. So you cannot just say like a flex bus is a property like a color, this one is a whole module. So you have access to a lot of properties once you apply a display flex to an element. So before you can start using this property, we need to apply a display flex to the parent element or the flex container. If you don't do this, you won't have if you're trying to use some of the property, it won't work. It won't work. Not just the flex actually, you can also apply an inline flex, but majorly the flex value actually. So flex container property. The first one we have here is the flex direction. So I want to kind of go to where I have Shade, please, can you? Yes. So yeah, in this, I want to do it in one.
Okay, so you can go to. Sorry, guys. This is where the file is.
Okay, thank you. So I want to load the first output that I have. So yeah. Okay. Yeah, I want to. Okay. Yes. Thank you. Yeah, I say. He's not to save, so he's not to save. Control S. No, to
Command
save.
S.
Okay, it's Command F.
Yeah. Sorry, guys. Let me just put this there.
Okay, thank you, Shadi. So this is what we have currently without us applying the display flex. So if we use our display flex here on the parent element, like I said before, you will see the effect it will have. It will make the items within the parent container to display flex actually, like flex. Yeah, so by default, before, if you notice, it was aligning straight, but now it is display flex. So that is what display flex property does. So usage, back to the usage. So the first, not usage, the first. So these are the properties that we apply on the container itself, not the item. Yeah. So the first one here is flex direction. So this just define like the direction of the flex item. Do you want it to appear um, horizontally or vertically, or the reverse form set of the horizontal with the vertical? So their values are called roll, reverse, column and column reverse. So once you use these values on a display item, you can get a result that looks like this diagram. So I will kind of try to make our elements to look like that. So, yeah. So here is the styling for the flex direction. This is what we have. So we want our direction to be like in column. Yeah, this is what we have. So we can actually assign roll or vertical or row reverse or the column and reverse as well. So we just kind of we will see the outcome of what we have now. That's right. So if I refresh this page, oh shucks, I didn't see. Yeah. So this is flex direction and it's appearing like a column, like we tested, like we specify. So I can change it. I want to view. I want to use dev tools. Yeah. So if I by default, it is always going to be whole. So whole is the default value. If you didn't specify anything, it will always stay like like this. So the default value is true. Then row reverse, it should be coming from the other direction as well. Then we have seen column. So we have seen column. So this is the column reverse. It's coming from the other end as well. So back to our slide. So next is flesh wrap. Yeah, this is very, 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 very important when it comes to taking a responsive web application. So by default, if you have a ton lot of items, like an item within this container, they always want to stay like on the same line because they are siblings. They just want to remain. They are going to stay here. They are not leaving each other, so they want to be on the same line, even if the view is now small. They try to shrink themselves. They just want to be on that same line without them going to the next line. So this flex wrap kind of help us to bring them to a new line once the initial space is kind of filled. So it brings them to a new line. So by default, the value is no wrap. So if you didn't apply maybe anything, it will always take this default value. That means they will always stay on the same line. But if you want them to you're on a new line when they have been exceeded their threshold, they will go on to the next line. So that's what this guy does. So I will show you a typical example of what that look like. So yeah, so I want to kind of stretch. Thank you. Yeah, so by default, you see it, they are all on the same line at first. So when I start to maybe make it to look mobile on a, if it gets to some point, it will go to the next line, to some point, it gets, so you just want to make sure that I'm able to, it's just take them to the next line, actually. So for the case of mobile view, like maybe you are designing something, and you can, this guy is very, a flex wrap is very, very important when you want to create a responsive web application. It helps you align your item very, very well without you having to do a lot of media inquiry that, okay, on this screen and size, bring it down and position it left or right, float, so stuff like that. So it can help you save lots of time. Um, so next we have is flex flow. So this is just a short form of saying of your flex direction and also your flex wrap. So as you can see, this is a flex direction. Then this is for flex wrap as well. So it's just a shorthand form of combining those two. So next is justify content. Yeah. So this property is mostly used to align an item along the x-axis, or you say horizontally. So if you want to position like an item within a container and along the x-axis horizontally, you make use of justify content. So this property is mostly used, I believe, if you are within content, you might have used this guy like a lot. Even in Bootstrap, they have a class that cater for this as well. So by default, it will take a flex start. That's the default value. So if you didn't apply any property, if you don't apply this, it will always stay at the left. It will always stay at this flex start, which is the left hand start. So yeah, so that is where it will always stay. So that like all sort of value you can apply flex end, flex center, space between, space around, and space evenly. So this one, the flex end takes the item to the end of the parent element, just like you using float. But I feel this one is better than you using like a float, right? Yeah. Then this one is every position the item in the center. Then this one kind of distribute space between this item within this container. Then the space around, give it like help distribute space evenly. The space around the elements that are within this container. Then the last one, which is space equally, help distribute equal spaces between these elements within this container. So the example I have here Yeah. Okay, what did I even do? Okay, play. Oh, I shared it. Justify content. Yes. So here's the. So I did a space between here. So you can see it applying space between this between the elements that are within this container. So that's it. So if you want to try it, you can as well change the value that you assign to the justify content, and you will see the changes yourself. So next I have here is align item. So what this does is that this defines the flex item along the y-axis, that is vertically, and the default value is flex start. So like for justify a content, what it does is that it aligns this item within the x-axis, that means horizontally. And for the case of this one, it's along the y-axis, which means vertically. So these are the values that you can apply to the container. Flex start, flex end, center, stretch, then the baseline. Yeah. So for the flex start, as you know, you just put it at the start of the container. So the flex end, you take it to the end of the container. The center, we position it at the center. Stretch, you make it stretch throughout the container. And the default value I put here is stretch, which is what we have been seeing already. So it has always it's always stretched out, not it's always stretched. That's the default value. Then baseline, yeah. So I will show you how this works. And yeah, so currently I'm using baseline as the value. So I want to change it. Um, so yeah, so it's baseline. So I can change it to be, so by default it is stretch, like I said. So this is center position. This is flex and you take it to the bottom of the container. Then this is that of the flex start, which is take to the top, the beginning of the container. Then, yeah, so all these other property like self end is still the same as the flex start value. Then the self start as well is the same. So the major things are the ones that I listed in the slide. I will still leave it back to baseline. Okay. So align content. Yeah. So this define the flex item along the y-axis. That is vertically actually. Yeah. So remember when I was saying that the reason why we use a Flexbox is to easily centralize like an element. So with a Flexbox, it makes it easier to kind of put things in the center. So we should always take note of that. And this property, the align content is similar to the justify content as well, because it has the same values as that of the justified content. Things like flex start, flex center, stretch, space between, and also the space around. But the only difference is here is that these items, they are being aligned vertically, but for the justified content, it is horizontally. Then that is just the major difference between these two, between the justified content and aligned content. So here I have with me an example. So here I made it to be centralized. Yeah, so it always stays at the center. I can decide to change the value of this guy. So by default, it is flex start, so it always stay at the start. Then there is baseline. No, this is not the property. Okay, there's flex end, there's flex start. This is what I'm looking for. Then there's space around. Then there is space between as well. Then there's space equally as well. So it's the same thing as your justify and content, but in this case, it is vertically and not horizontally. Yeah. So for the flex items, so we are going to talk about some of the properties for the flex items. We are done with the flex container. So the first one we have here is the order. So we might at some point in time make use of this guy because I have actually a small widget. So it just so what this guy does, or this order does, is that it kind of position the item within this container in a different position. So if you apply like an order one to to um, to an item, it can change the position from where it ought to be to somewhere else. Say you have your item one, your item two with your item three, those three cards, and you apply like an order of one, order, then the value of one, it will change the order of where it is on the container. So I will show an example of what that looks like. So now remember that we are applying the style now on the item, not on the container. What we have been doing before is that we apply this style and the flex direction and the align and content on the container, not on the item itself. So this one, we have a class here with an order of one. So I applied it on the first item here. You can see that with an order of one. this is a class, so I give it an order of what. So if I reload this on the browser, so if you notice, I have item 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6. Then apply the other item 1. So take a look at the position where it is now, which is here. So I think I'll skip that. So next is Flex Go. So what Flex Go does is that it just increase the size of an item once an item is applied a Flex Go. So so this diagram kind of explain what it does. So for the case of this first guy, this one, so they apply a Flex Go here. So it's now like ×2 of what other items that are here is. So the default value is 0. That means if you did not apply anything, it will always stay evenly. But if you apply like a Flex Go property, then yeah, it will increase in size more than the others. So here is the style for. So for the first element here, so I applied a Flex Go and I gave it a style of Flex Go of 2. So it's like it will be ×2 of the initial size. So I want to show you how. So take a look at Flex 1. So it will always go more than the others. And the last thing I have here is self-align or align. It's align self. So what this does is that it kind of position or align an item along the y-axis. So if you apply an item with an align flex property, so you can apply a flex start, which is the default. If you start at itself, then if you decide to apply a flex end or this item, it will make it go to the bottom of this container. So that's a typical example of a self-align. So here is something like that, which is being. So I want to. So you can make it there at the center as well. And flex end and flex start. So some of these properties here, they are kind of the same, like they do the same thing. Example, the self end and the self start. And they kind of do the same with the flex end and the flex start. So the major values here are the center, flex end, and flex start. So that is basically what you'll be working with. Yeah, so thanks for listening. So these are the references that I made where I got my content from CSS Tree, W3 School, a Medium Article, and Scotch.io. Thank you, everybody. question.
The question somewhere along the line.
Yeah.
Okay.
Outside 12.
Why do you
I need
think?
to see the slide. So
Okay.
I've forgotten
The page.
the question. Yeah, I wanted it down.
This was the beginning.
No, it was in the middle.
Yeah,
Yeah,
it was so
yeah,
you can stop scrolling.
Okay.
If I remember it, I'll just reach out to you personally.
Okay.
Well,
On what channel?
anyways.
But we not see flash street or let's do.
Let's see.
Shoot and grow.
No,
Okay.
street and business.
So business actually is a combination of
What do you think?
basis, flex basis.
Okay.
Yeah. So it's a combination of some of these flex. I think some of these flex properties.
The other property.
Okay.
So the default is 0.
Yeah.
So when you bring it to
You mentioned it that the default is 0.
Yeah.
so when you bring it to 1, it will come at the back. A number higher than 0 will be following you at the back. I have a number.
Well, I've not even asked my question. But then your explanation might kind of answer what. So you mentioned, I wanted to ask if there was a particular reason why you used 1. Could I just go ahead and
Yes, you can actually.
my first number, maybe I just go ahead and use 99.
A number bigger than the rest.
So that was basically what I wanted. I wanted you to explain how the numbering system works. What happens when you use a bigger number? What happens when you use a smaller number? Because you just touched on you putting
Yeah.
And if you want to be in front, you can use a negative number too.
Yeah. So I noticed.
I don't know.
So I noticed that thing while I was trying to go through, do the whole learning process for my head. So I noticed that even if you put maybe 1, 2, it's always take it to the back. I can't explain why that is like that. That's why as a I said, I think I will just skip this part because I can't really explain why it works like that. Yeah.
So I think Coco
yes.
made mention of why that happens. Bigger numbers carry bigger weights or something. So a bigger number will most likely go to
Yeah,
the
the
back.
one.
Then yes, then for minus it
To
will
bring
it
it
will come
forward.
yes to the front.
Thank you. Another question from the remote community.
I don't have any question.
Okay, so in the absence of any other questions, I think that we can call it a talk. So one other thing to just let us know, you can find these recordings